Marketer of the Day, episode 708. Build your learning management system course using WordPress or Kajabi with WP Tonic podcast host Jonathan Denwood. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Mr. Jonathan Denwood from WP-Tonic.com. And Jonathan is a leading influencer in the WordPress space. He has his own podcast, and he champions e-learning entrepreneurs who want to build substantial online businesses. He knows all about these SaaS platforms. He knows all about Kajabi. And so we're going to find out if you want to build your first successful or your next successful online course, what platform to use, what you need to know. So, Jonathan, glad to be talking to you.
Oh, fantastic, Robert. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Well, heck yeah, and I appreciate you hopping on and sharing your expertise. So as far as what people need to know these days about their websites, what do you think is a good jumping off point here? What's the most important thing? What's the first thing you tell people when they say, I want a website and want an online course?
It's a great question. I think it's the foundations. It's like building a house. If your foundations are rubbish, the rest of it can be fantastic, but the house is probably going to fall down. And that's what I say to possible clients. And they say, what do you mean by foundations? And what I mean is people get very engrossed around the technology of the technology platform that they're going to run their course on, and then the course content. That's what they get fixated about, Robert. But what they really should be concentrating initially, Robert, is there a real need for this course? You know, am I really solving a real problem? And will people give me money for solving that problem? But the good news is there it's much easier to find out clear answers to that question than any other time. But what amazes me, Robert, is how so many people just jump in and build the course and hire us, and they haven't really built their tribe, and then they don't really know if there's a real demand for the thing that they're solving, which is the reason for the course.
Well, Jonathan, I think we're on the same page here that it's a bad idea to just charge ahead and create something because you need to know if there's that demand for it, right? Like, why spend all the time teaching someone how to knit their own cable knit sweaters or change their own oil unless people are asking for that sort of thing? And that makes perfect sense. And so we need to have a good foundation. And so would you say that the platform someone chooses to host their course doesn't really matter all that much? I mean, they're all like a little different, but it seems like you're saying that the more important thing is what problem is to be solved and is there a demand, and the platform is kind of important, but not as important as solve a problem.
Yeah, I like how you quantified that at the end, because I would say it's less of a problem. Well, I'm dedicated to WordPress. I've been part of the WordPress for the past 8-9 years. Now, I got into WordPress in the early days as a front-end developer, and I've been running this podcast for almost 4 or 5 years. But I'm still dedicated to WordPress because I think some of these SaaS systems, and you mentioned Kajabi, I think they're great. But I think they tend to market themselves as an easy solution, but fundamentally they're just as hard to use. Or hard is probably the wrong word, but they're just as complicated as if you were using WordPress. That's the reality. That I honestly do feel that. But on the other hand, I think WordPress, if you really intend to build a real business, and at some stage maybe leave your 9-to-5 job, or that you can have multiple courses, and it's going to be a big part of your income. I think you'd be best to build that on WordPress. It's a bit like renting a flat or apartment at the right time of your life, it's fine. But at some stage, we all tend to want to buy our own property. And I think that's the same thing. With WordPress, if you get fed up the hosting provider, you get fed up with your developer, you get fed up with this or that, you can just move on. But, I've had so many clients that have built something on these SaaS platforms, and then they got fed up either with the cost or this feature that they just can't do on that platform. And they don't make it easy to migrate out from these systems, Robert.
I agree completely, and I like that analogy there of, are you going to rent to own, or are you rent or are you going to own? Right, owning is having the WordPress site, and you can always change web hosts, fire the developer, and still have that same WordPress site. But if you're in one of these monthly platforms, it might look enticing at first, but you said that you still come across the same headaches. You might come across limitations on features, and then you're locked in. It's not easy to migrate somewhere else. You have to basically recreate the whole site.
They're part of their business plan is not to make it easy.
Right. Yeah, that keeps them around. If it was so easy to just move off of that, then anyone could leave. So as far as like WordPress being powerful and being able to do anything, is there anything these days that you really like about WordPress, that like a plugin or a feature or something about a website or a course that WordPress can do that some of these other platforms are still lacking?
Well, there's two areas. I think the fundamental thing that's really changed WordPress is basically the development of fantastic page builders. And also WordPress internally has developed a page building functionality called Gutenberg. It's coming along really fast. It was about a year ago when it went live, Gutenberg, and it's just a new editor that has drag and drop, and it just makes it much easier to keep pages updated. It doesn't have quite the feature list of the two main commercial page builders out there, which is Elementor and Beaver Builder. We use it both quite extensively with clients, but they've really changed how you can use WordPress. If it's a course making reasonable money, I still think you need a developer on your team or a company like WP Tonic. But it doesn't mean now that every minor change to a page, or you want to build landing pages, or you want to build pop-ups, you don't have to hire some developer or hire us to do that all the time. You can do it yourself, or if you haven't got the time, we can do it. But it really has changed the landscape, I feel, dramatically. And the second thing is that in WordPress, we got two of the most powerful learning management systems on the market at the present moment, and they are Lifter LMS and LearnDash, and they've been in a death confrontation to prove which one is the best, which is great news if you're a course creator, because both companies have been upgrading their environments because they're in really strong competition, and you, the course developer, course owner, you're benefiting from that competition, and they're superb, Robert.
Fantastic. And so you're saying that so there's two areas here where WordPress really excels. You say that there's these page builders such as Gutenberg, which is the built-in one, and then Elementor and Beaver Builder, which are kind of the third-party ones. And to be honest, Jonathan, at first when the first couple of years when these page builders came out, I resisted them. I don't know how you are, but I was afraid of change, and they were awkward. I wasn't sure what I was looking at. But the more I used some of these themes that had Elementor and Beaver Builder built in, there wasn't that much difference, right? It was a matter of like you have your wrappers and your columns and then your items that you drop in. And so maybe there are slight differences, but once you get the hang of a few of those things of like, are my columns going to be 2x2, or will I have like 6 columns and then like, drop in like a headline or a text or a separator? Once you get the hang of one, it seems like the other ones naturally follow. And then but one area where I am a little bit behind is with these LMSs, these learning management systems. And so what I've seen from these is that you can basically like make have like all these course features, right? Like have badges, take quizzes, and like track student progress. So if someone asked you about, well, what is a learning management system? How would you explain it? And what are some fun things you can do with them?
Well, it's kind of like a wrapper. If you've got a very simple course, you could probably do it using one of these page builders and buying a membership plugin if it's a very simple course. But if you plan to build out something that's going to generate, good income for you, and it's like everything with the internet, with podcasting, with everything, standards have increased, haven't they? What is expected from the audio quality of a podcast, what's expected in features in a course, it's all got increased. People expect more. But the good thing is it's easier to do more. So it's always a balance, isn't it? But what these learning management systems do, they're kind of wrapper that offer a number of functionalities that somebody joining a reasonably course expects, which is like that video, being able to download extra materials like PDFs, being able to do interactive quizzes, being able to some element of gamification where you're getting some form of certificate or badge when you complete a certain section. There's a host of different elements which these learning management plugins help. And they also produce I would say slightly, but this is only like 15% difference. LearnDash went through a major revision about 3 months ago, and the actual UX design environment that they give the student is one of the best on the market. The actual experience of taking a course, they've got the way the course is laid out and the buttons and the functionality for the student to actually is some of the best on the market, in my opinion.
Super cool. All right. So basically, we can add bonus PDFs to videos, quizzes, gamification, certificates, badges, and what I think is really helpful that we've mentioned a few times here is it seems like that when you're building a website or a course, there's light work and there's heavy work. And kind of to use your analogy of the foundation, sometimes you might just paint a room and we can do that ourselves, or maybe replace the carpet. But then if we're going to knock down a wall or add in an extra bathroom, that might be something heavier that you need to pay someone else to do. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? We don't have to do 100% of the work ourselves, and we also don't have to be relying on some other like website contractor to build our site. We can do the simple stuff like make pages, figure out the page builder, figure out the course, the quizzes, the pop-ups. But then if there's something really huge and major and custom that doesn't quite fit, maybe that's the time to call in the big guns like a developer or like WP Tonic or someone like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I just want to make one thing that will help your listeners and viewers if they decide to build something and they want to do it themselves initially on WordPress. The one thing that causes a bad rap for WordPress or a bad experience is buying really cheap hosting, Robert. Buying hosting from Bluehost or GoDaddy for $3 a month. That ain't going to hack it with a learning management system, with a membership site that's even just got 10, 20 members. It will slow down like sticky treacle. It will be a terrible experience. And it's the main thing, some of these hosting providers, they're very good at marketing, Robert, but it just won't work with a membership site. So, what you got to be looking at is around the $20, $30, $35 mark for your initial hosting package for your membership site. And, there's about, WP Tonic offers hosting packages, or you can go with Kinsta or WP Engine. There's about 4 or 5 that I would recommend. And your experience is going to be so much better, Robert, than going with like $3 hosting that will just not work.
And you make a good point there that, it's not that much of a difference. $3 hosting versus $20 hosting, just make one extra sale per month. Just have one less Starbucks per month, right?
Exactly. If you can't afford what you're spending in Starbucks for your hosting, I don't think you haven't really got a business that's worth all the time and effort that you're going to have to be putting in to build a really nice course that people in 2019 is going to want to join, Robert.
Right. And I think that some people are being cheap, but they don't want to admit it, because I have a backup plugin, and so many of our buyers are people that are migrating from a $9 per month web host to an $8 a month web host. They're doing all this extra work just to save $1 per month because they think that they're getting ahead. And guys like you and me are saying there's nothing wrong with paying $20, $30 just for that hosting, knowing that your website will run fast, knowing that it can handle the traffic, it can handle those members, and then you won't have headaches down the road. And then that way you won't have to migrate to some other web host later on and give yourself additional work.
Well, it's a different animal because with cheap hosting, they're using fantastic caching technology to actually run all the thousands of websites they've got on a server or whatever setup they've got. Where with a learning management system, with a course, there's a lot of the pages you can't cache. And you can have multiple people signing in and using. It's really a miniature application you're building, because you can have multiple people logging in at the same time. Well, cheap, heavily cached hosting can't cope with that, Robert.
And yeah, and you make an excellent point, and we hope that the listeners know what caching means. But just in case people are not caught up, caching means that when we generate a web page, then we kind of store it for later, and that way we can just kind of show that again and again, which is great if you're just showing like a web page, a landing page, something like that. But if we're dealing with a course, a membership site where someone logs in, different people are going to see different things. It might have their own name customized. It might be if person A bought and person B refunded, we want to let one person log in and the other person not log in. So there's a big difference between just a really simple website that just shows up a page that never changes versus like you're saying, Jonathan, an app basically where especially if you have like a learning management system, it shows what videos someone's watched or hasn't, or how far they watched, or quizzes. So literally every person that logs in will see something different. So we need some more horsepower behind the thing. So we need to have a decent web host such as what WP Tonic provides, or Kinsta, or WP Engine. And so as we're beginning to wrap up, wind down here, I want to make sure that everyone knows about WP Tonic and about your podcast and what makes it unique and special. So now it's self-promotion time, right, Jonathan? So as far as what you personally have been doing and teaching people about WordPress, like what makes you unique? What has you excited these days?
Well, I think with I do 2 shows a week, actually, Robert. I'm mad, aren't I? I actually also do another show that's another company that I run, where I have a partner. But when it comes to WordPress, we do 2 shows a week. The Thursday show, I have a co-host, which is Adrian, and he's the founder of Groundhog, which is the premier competitor to something like Active Campaign, but it's all built in WordPress, and he's my co-host. We do a Thursday show, and it's aimed at the entrepreneur, the WordPress entrepreneur that's looking at e-learning, But we also cover other areas. We have some of the leading figures in the WordPress community or online marketing join us. And we've had, with Adrian's help, we've had recently some fantastic guests, some fantastic interviews, and we've got some fantastic guests coming up in the next couple of months, some of the leaders in online marketing industry. So I'm very excited, Robert. And on Fridays, I do a round table with some of the they've all become friends of mine, but some of the leading voices in WordPress, and that's more aimed at the developer, consultant, power user. That's people that go to WordCamps, that go to WordCamp USA, that type of crowd. And I have a round table show, and it's just a blast. And we discuss the recent week's WordPress stories, but also some other external stories, because sometimes things aren't happening that are interesting in WordPress. So we mix it up. And that's an amazing show. I just do it because I just find it such fun. And I've got a good mix of people on the round table, and they just let rip, and it's a blast, Robert.
Amazing. And so, what are those podcasts called, and how do we find them?
Well, if you do a search in iTunes for WordPress, we're normally in the top 12, or you can go just to the wp-tonic.com website, and all these shows are there as well, all with full sets of show notes, Robert.
Super cool. So wp-tonic.com, we can find those podcasts. And I mean, I think that listening to WordPress podcasts is something that everyone should do, because it's not too technical, right? It's not like you're watching video tutorials or reading code. You're hearing people just talk about, well, there's this plugin, there's this new feature, there's this new thing to think about. And I think that's a really great thing for maybe these people that they want to...
And the thing you got to remember, sorry to interrupt a little bit, Robert.
That's okay.
The thing you got to remember is now WordPress is hosting about 35% of all the internet's websites, and I can only see that growing. I think some people like Matt Moenweg talks about 70-80% of all websites. I think that's a bit unrealistic, but I honestly can see in the next few years 50% of all websites being run on WordPress, Robert.
Yeah, and there's a plugin for everything. I mean, sometimes it feels like how there's a streaming service for everything, right? There's like a Apple Plus, there's a Disney Plus. In the same way, there's like a plugin for any kind of thing that you want to make in WordPress. And then you mentioned a few times that some of us might be power users, right? And even if we are not necessarily jumping right into the code, it's good to know what's possible, or it's good to maybe be able to speak the lingo a little bit if we're hiring a team, or if we're hiring someone to build something for us. And it's good to know about what the latest things in these page builders or these learning management systems. So tuning into some kind of a podcast is just an easy way to get this knowledge to come into our head without having to read things every day or having to watch video. Just listen to some of these roundtables with some of these crazy guys in a good way who really love WordPress and love creating these solutions. So wp-tonic.com is the place to find those podcasts. And then as far as the other things that people can find on wp-tonic.com, Jonathan, what kind of other things do you sell? Like what sorts of services and things like that?
Well, we kind of... if it's around e-learning, if it's around running a course, you're going to find really fantastic resources on the WP Tonic. We write about 2 to 3 detailed articles per month around various topics of being an e-learning entrepreneur. So there's a fantastic blog section. I do some training videos as well. And we offer hosting where we offer all hosting plus all the software, all the leading WordPress software that you would want to set up a learning management system. And that starts monthly at $35 a month. So you get fantastic hosting, plus you get all the software included. I think it's a fantastic offer. And then we have other plans which increase the amount of users that can use the website. And we offer on some of the other plans, we offer development hours. Our middle plan, you get 2 hours of development time if you need some help per month to build it out. And then we offer semi-custom and full custom build outs. So I think we offer solutions for the DIY person, the person that might need some help, or somebody that just wants it built for them and then wants some continuing support from a specialist company. So what I'm trying to do with WP Tonic is remove any of the headaches that people think that they can have with WordPress, because we keep the site secure, we keep all the plugins up to date, and that's on our basic plan. So all you have to worry about is building a really great course.
Super cool. Well, you thought of everything. And it seems like in our conversation here, we broke down a lot of those WordPress myths, right? And as you said, most of it is just from cheap hosting. And so you get with good hosting, get with WP Tonic. They'll keep your site secure, up to date, running fast, and with all those plugins built in. So that way, you also avoid that other WordPress stereotype of having to run out and piece together all these plugins and themes. You have it all in one place. Plus you have some of that development time where you can scale up and create something that's 100% absolutely unique. And that way you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can have all those features, all those cool things WordPress can do, but without all of the usual headaches that you hear about, which many times are just self-inflicted with going into the cheap hosting or using the cheap plugins or piecing things together. Why not make it easy by going to wp-tonic.com so that way you can tune into those podcasts, you can read those few articles per month about the latest and greatest things happening, and you can use that very excellent hosting that has a lot of excellent things built in. So as we're about to wrap up our conversation here, Jonathan, do you think we left anything out? Do you think that there is anything missing that people need to know about WordPress and making their courses?
The only thing is, I think I need to hire you as my marketing.
Right.
You've done a better job than me. But no, thanks, Robert. But I'm kind of overstressing it now. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, this site is slow as hell. I'm getting bugged from my students how bad the experience is. I hate WordPress, and then we investigate because they hire us, and they're on $3 to $5 hosting, and I just say to them, "This is a business. This is you're charging 50, 100, 150, 250 plus a month to these students, and you're on $3 hosting. It won't hack it."
Right. Maybe why not take the amount you're charging one student and put that on your website? That makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're being cheap with yourself, imagine how what your students will think. So why not invest maybe slightly more in your business? That way you can get the business that you need and that you deserve. And the place to go is wp-tonic.com. And thanks so much, Jonathan, for being an entertaining guest and telling us what we need to know and making it simple, making it fun. Really appreciate it, and appreciate you too.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Robert. I really have enjoyed it.
Want to listen to more fantastic Marketers of the Day? Subscribe to us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes and browse past episodes at marketeroftheday.com.